So I'm about to hop on the line with Michael, also known as, was known as Chill Pill on the Twitters, now under the handle or under the name SQ. And I came across a tweet from him, I think it was yesterday or the day before, where he went into a bit of detail about his story working in Web3, the Degen crypto economy, if you like. And it touched a button on me that made me reach out to him and ask if he would like to speak further on the subject of the Degen generation for my documentary. And he's agreed to do so. So I'm going to see what he has experienced. I believe he's been in the space for about 3 or 4 years, if I remember the story correctly. So he's seen some shit, and from the post that he made, it seems like there's been a lot of ups and downs there. I'm going to try to touch on some of those, but I do have my standard questions that I ask that I will be sticking to. But it does seem like this chap has an entire episode. He could have an entire episode of the Degen generation docuseries to his own projects and his own experiences. But as you know, this series is a rolling series. Once we get publishing the first few episodes, I think we're going to see, and I know for a fact from the amount of people that DM me, I know personally that there are stories for days, and within this space, this Degen generation space, there is just some absolutely wild and wonderful, not so wonderful stories that I'm attempting to bring to surface. Now, for some reason, Apple Macintosh computers like to do these reaction things. Did you see that? I went like this, and then it created a digital thumbs up, which I don't like and I don't appreciate. So I'm going to turn that off immediately, so we don't get any more of those weird digital pop-up thumbs. I'm running an AI assistant on the background here that is automatically capturing a transcription of this interview, which will help me in post-production a hell of a lot. And on the previous productions, I've had, had to bring in a third party to help me go through all the interviews. I think there was 35 plus interviews on my most previous documentary, and I had to have a guy help me out there just to go through it all and pin down all the parts from the interviews that, it was over 40 hours of interviews footage that needed to be harvested for the actual information that I needed for the documentary. So I'm hoping that this AI chap that's running in the background here, capturing the transcription, will help that process run a little bit smoother. But, it's always the thing with trying out new technologies is they make a bunch of promises and then they, often don't deliver, especially if you're on the free version, which I am. Okay, now we've got 4 participants, so seems like you're on 2 devices there, mate.
Hi. 2 devices, not really. I think you've got my AI assistant taking notes. You can kick it out.
You've also got an AI running in the background. Oh yeah, autopilot, I see. No, I'm running one as well, mate. I'm capturing the transcription as well for the post-production, so.
That's awesome. Sorry for being late, man. It's a little bit crazy with the farmers and the strikes around Europe. So yeah, I was stuck for a bit.
No problem, mate. No problem. Trying to get you here, as you should make the full screen when you speak, but at the moment I'm, here we go, remove spotlight. So now,
yeah, it should work.
Yeah, now it's working. It's much better.
Nice meeting you, first of all. My name is Michael. I think I wrote, yeah, I did write that.
Yeah,
So
you
it's
did,
fine.
mate. Yeah, I appreciate it. And yeah, I was just chattering on to myself, introducing you. I got two other cameras and then this camera set up. I'm making a documentary about the Degen culture, basically, the Degen generation. I saw your post the other day, and
Mm-hmm.
it was a refreshing read, and it made me reach out to you. And I've seen a few of your things earlier on as well, so I figured we'd get in the room together, and I've got my 10 questions that I go through with my people, and we kind of sort of try to try to address these within the 45 minutes that we have together. But if we get deep into it, I can always flick you another link and we can continue on, depending on your own time frame as well. So
Yeah, sure. That sounds great. For now, I think for me, it's like 6:15. So I do have 45 minutes. Then I think I'm scheduled to go on a space. But look, yeah, I've got a pretty interesting story. I've heard you're interested in hearing me out, and you're doing this docu-series. Happy to talk. It's been a while for me, sitting on the sidelines for a bit, so it's good practice for me as well. And yeah, looking forward to it, man. I'm like an open book, nothing to hide. Quite an interesting story in this space for about 2 years and a couple of months now. So happy to be here.
yeah, and it got me thinking, there could, given it's a series, it sounds like your story could have an entire episode of its own. But for now, I want to get through a couple of these questions, and then we'll take it as we come. But you can, if you don't mind, if you just briefly introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about your Deegan philosophy, if you like, and how it fits into the regular world.
Well, my name is Michael. I'm 30. I did turn 30 in December. Yeah, I mean, I studied hospitality, really got into Web3 and the degen culture, I would say about 3 years ago in 2021. I worked in startups up until I found, NFTs. And I think that helped me a lot because I jumped into this space just by buying some NFTs here and there, but then I started working immediately. Like I found myself a job and I worked for a marketing agency in 2021, end of 2021 and 2022 from Canada. It's actually an interesting story because I hired them first. I wanted to launch my own project, and it didn't really go very well. Paid them about $15,000, and they didn't produce any results. So I asked them for my money back, and they offered me a job. But before I get into that, yeah, a little bit more about myself. As I said, study hotel management and hospitality, worked in prop tech startups, with the Airbnb boom, and yeah, I really didn't feel like I was fitting into a traditional kind of work environment, corporate, even though I did work and that was pretty good. I couldn't really stay for longer than 8 months to a year. I would kind of grow tired of trying to, get promoted and trying to climb the ladder. It was quite slow for me. I was very energetic, so I would change jobs quite frequently. And then once I discovered NFTs, it was really by chance. One of my friends was like, let's buy these pictures. They're selling very expensive after that. It's a bubble. Like, let's learn about it, which is why I did. I started with Solana NFTs, literally just minted a couple NFTs and sold them for like 20, 30x the next day. And then I was like, all right, there's something here. Obviously, it's a bubble, but there's something, beyond these pictures. And I just started getting myself familiar with the technology, what it means, what these NFTs can do for you. I started seeing a little bit beyond just the speculation that was going on at the time. And I wanted to build my own, tech startup, let's say Web3 company. I think what attracted me a lot, into this degen culture, you might say, is the fact that I felt there are really no barriers, the same way that you have in a corporate environment where people want to know where you went to university, if you have any degrees, what's your experience before anything else. So you don't really stand a chance, if you haven't gone through the traditional education system and got some degrees and kind of proved yourself that way first. So um, I got attracted because I've seen young people, with not so much experience in the real world, able to build these businesses and kind of, experiment with this technology and see if they can build these new tech companies. And that attracted me. So I wanted to do that, but I wanted to get some experience first, which is why I looked for a job. So I'm going to stop here because obviously this is where my chapter starts in Web3. It starts with a role that I had at a marketing agency from Canada for about a year. So yeah, I'm going to stop here, see if you have any additional questions or if I managed to respond, to your point.
Yeah, and no, I appreciate that. And like I say, I think we've got a rabbit hole that we can go down there. But I think for now I want to keep it sort of general, just to kind of get a bit of a more of an understanding about your perspective on the Degen generation more broadly. And then we can look at going down some more specific avenues through your personal experiences afterwards. It's very possible that we will have a follow up, depending. But so the Degen philosophy, from your perspective, is wrapped around this low bar to entry, essentially. This freedom of this playfulness.
I would say that's one aspect of it as well. What I did find in this space is that most of the people here are collectors and gamblers. Like you have this interesting mix between people that like collecting stuff, trading cards, sports memorabilia, things like that, and obviously people that gamble. Crypto is a speculative environment, so obviously you're gonna have that element here as well. So those would be kind of the three pillars, of the Degen culture. If you ask me, it's, I would say, not as high as a barrier to entry as you would have like in the tech world. And then you have this collector mindset, and you've got the gambling mentality as well that people have here. They want to buy stuff. It's like those TV shows where people buy these storage boxes and they find stuff there and then they sell it, more expensive.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that here as well. Like that's what attracted a lot of people here. Imagine a mint, right? This is how it started with NFTs. You basically have this collection of thousands of pictures. Some of them are rarer than others, and obviously they're going to be more expensive on secondary markets. And you would go into this means you would pay some money, and you would have that excitement of opening a pack without knowing what's inside, hoping for the most special card. It's like that with the storage boxes as well, right? Like you were bidding, and if it looked to you like that one might hold something super valuable, you would bid more. So it's that element of surprise as well, and I think that comes from the fact that most of the people here were collectors up until this technology emerged, and they loved collecting stuff and maybe flipping them, for a profit as well. So at the intersection between like collectors and gamblers, this is where I think the Degen culture started forming. But I would say something else as well. I think the roots of this movement started with GameStop, right? And that's because I think in terms of the age bracket as well, most of the people here can remember the 2008 financial crisis, not in terms of being affected maybe directly, but seeing their parents and seeing their family, super, super affected by it and going through some hard times. So GameStop as a movement, not really sure if you know about it, but obviously it's this movement where basically retail took on Wall Street, right? There's this guy that finds this stock, and during the coronavirus pandemic, he finds out that there is a lot of selling pressure from these hedge funds, and these Wall Street boys, and they were shorting it, more than it was even possible, right? So he went on this quest of, making people understand that it's possible to use the power of numbers and come together and actually make this stock go up and have a short squeeze situation on a stock that wasn't really meaning much at that point. GameStop was a retail company that was selling games to people, like discs, CDs, and DVDs. So that was like, not going very well as a business. There wasn't any fundamental that would have told you, oh, this stock is good. But it was a movement, right? So it started there on Reddit, and I was there as well. And I remember I put some money in without any hope of getting more. I bought at the top, but it was purely for the movement. And something extraordinary happened. I think it was the first time. It was all over the news in the States. People from all over the world pitched in. It started in the States, but then it was a global movement, and the stock was just going up. Obviously, it was a short squeeze situation, and the hedge funds were losing billions of dollars. So it was kind of a fuck you to the system. And I felt that's where the whole movement started, with these people that felt they never had a chance to compete against, the Wall Street boys and the hedge funds, and they felt that the game is rigged. We can't get homes. Our generation is called the rent generation. So it was beautiful, to put it that way. For me, living those days on the Reddit forums, and just being able to participate, even pitching in a couple $100 that I had at the time, was magical. And I think from that movement, the whole kind of Degen culture started branching out, and then you've had NFTs, right? So yeah,
No,
that's what I would add as well to the story, because I think it's super important. Even the language, you see, when you look around the space and you see, most of the NFT projects that started the movement were apes, right? And it's the language there, diamond hands, people that won't sell, and apes together strong, because the Wall Street boys would look at us and would be like, oh, these are just chumps, they're dumb. So it has a lot to do with that movement, if you think about it.
I recall it very well. Yeah. No, it's interesting. And one thing that's unique to crypto or Web3 or Degen culture or what have you is it, this pseudonymity or anonymity that prevails
Hmm.
in the space, and not really knowing where anybody's motivations lie in terms of how you interact with each other. Is that how does that play on your mind, or how do you think about how do you navigate this?
I was always an advocate of doxing. Like, I thought that if you're gonna build something in space, you should show your face. So me personally, I'm doxed. People know who I am. I had pictures with me. I met people in real life as well. So I wasn't really an anon. I was never an anon online, but a lot of people choose to be. And I think it's normal, like looking back at the past 2 years for me, yeah, there were times where I wished people wouldn't know my identity, just because this is the internet. It can get pretty heated, and it's not pleasant to get death threats and hateful messages. You see that happening with athletes as well. Obviously, they have different type of exposure, but it is one of the main reasons why people maybe prefer to stay anonymous in the space, because it lives on the internet, and behind the keyboards people can say a lot of nasty stuff. There is a lot of hate, so sometimes you might think that it's better this way, right? Again, I wasn't one of them. I really, and it's not just me. There are a couple of other people as well that never shied away from showing their face or revealing their identity. Obviously, you're not going to post your personal information online with address and everything. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't do that in the real world either. But having this fear of showing your face was not something that I really felt. I could understand why some people did, especially when it comes to big amounts of money, and some people have something to hide as well, which is, I think, one of the main reasons why you're afraid to kind of show your face. I've learned a lot when it comes to working with people. So if you ask me today, I would never start anything. I would never get into any business with anyone that's not willing to show their face, like, hands down. Because my experiences doing that were not the best. Like, usually when people in this space don't want to show their face even in private, it means their intentions are not that good. And that's something I've learned along the way.
No, my experience has been similar as well. And often, there's a lot of different characters, people role playing FBI agents, or, all kinds of different.
Yeah.
And that brings me to my next question, and that's the narrative battles in social media. You know, there's tribes, these these communities of different token holders or whatever often are throwing shit on each other, or they're spinning up false narratives about one another. You know, talk to me a little bit about your experience with with watching or observing such things.
I think it's, it's a cult-like mentality in most of the communities that you're gonna join. And that's because purely, I think, it's back biased, right? So we have a common interest in getting our bags pumped if we're invested financially in this initiative, in this community. Then we are going to behave more or less like a cult, and we want to be on top, and we can spin up narratives about other people. But I think in the end, what you see as well, right now it's a little bit different because space has matured compared to like 2 years ago. However, when it comes to like these little tribes, obviously there is a lot of tribalism in the world as well, not only in Web3. Like you see, in my opinion, like you have a world which is a lot more polarized today than it was 10 years ago when I was growing up. So it's that mentality, if you're not with me, if you don't agree with me, you're against me. Like it's really hard for people to have meaningful dialogue nowadays anyway, like regardless of the space. But obviously in Web3, you have that a little bit more intense because of the financial aspect of it, right? If I'm invested into a community, if I'm invested into a token, and something happens, obviously I'm at risk financially. I'm gonna be bitter. So there is this kind of crowd mentality that gets formed, and obviously, if a lot of people are angry because they lost their money, then they do behave like a mob. So you have that aspect of it as well, which means that in order to be successful, if you're launching a project, if you're building a platform, if you're going to be visible, you're going to be seen as this cult leader. Like people are going to look to you for answers and for results, and they're going to blame you for everything that's going on, but also going to praise you for, for everything that's happening, which is kind of a net positive. If you look around, right, even in crypto, let's say not looking at NFT projects or looking at smaller communities, even if you look at larger blockchains, besides Bitcoin, which is really decentralized, doesn't have a leader, you cannot really attack it, even if you want to. There's no one to aim at. Most of the others are the same. You have big blockchains, big founders, people that are invested and that say, this is it, we're the best, we're going to be successful, we're going to go mainstream, all the others are scams. And it creates this, obviously, this tribalism where one blockchain has a community full of people that are attacking another. I think nowadays, obviously, it's a little bit different. A couple of years ago, this we how was it called, the maxi mentality, right? You're a chain maxi, let's say you're an ETH maxi or a Solana maxi, which means that you only operate within the boundaries of that blockchain, and you think everything else is bullshit, everything else is gonna die and it's a scam, and only you are right for choosing that blockchain. That dissolved a little bit over time. It's not as bad as it was before, but you can still feel it. And that starts with the founders, right? You've got ETH with Vitalik, you've got, a lot of other blockchains with their own founders. And most of the times at the core of these communities, there is a cult-like atmosphere, right? And the goal of most cults is to grow. So you've got people that are behaving the same way that some people in the 70s and 80s were behaving as cult members, right? They were trying to convince other people to join because this is the best, right? This is gonna give us financial freedom or even more. So there are similarities here. I'm passionate about cults as well. I've been watching a lot, I've been reading a lot. So this feeling of being in a cult is something that you get in Web3 as well. Obviously not to the same extent as you would get, let's say in the 70s or 80s, because those were requiring you to actually be active in real life. Like face-to-face interactions are a lot different than on the internet. And obviously, like if you would have joined a proper cult in the 70s or 80s, it wouldn't be so easy to get out and move to another one, like, in 5 minutes. Whereas in crypto, it's kind of like that. You can have an argument within the community you're in. and you can be marginalized, and then you look for another one and you can join. And it's this space where you can find different tribes, even be part of more than one tribe. And it appeals to a lot of people because I think, we live in an era where you need to feel like you belong somewhere, right? And in order to belong and fit in, people do crazy shit. So I've seen people change as well, you know, after spending a couple of times in a certain community, right? Becoming a little bit more aggressive, or uh, different circumstances change people when they join a community. It's that peer pressure. But yeah, that's kind of my take on tribalism in Web3 and cults in general.
Right on. Okay. And do you think are there only transactional relationships in crypto, or are there genuine relationships? You know what I mean when I say transactional relationships, as in I won't do it, I'll only do this for you if you do that for me. Is it because these communities are fundamentally built upon economic systems from scratch? Is
I think
every
most of Yeah, I think most of the relationships are transactional, um, especially when you're trying to look at, let's say, Twitter and social media. Give me just 1 sec, please. I need to open the door for my dog. It's like crying. I don't know why. Yo, come on. I would say most of them are transactional. Um, hey, what's up? Sorry. Most of them are transactional, but once you're inside a specific community, I think it becomes a little bit less transactional because you're communicating and you're living together with people that kind of, are invested in the same thing. But if you think about it, even when you try to grow your presence in this space, especially on social media, right? And you see all of these people saying that, oh, support the people that support yourself and shit like that. Obviously, there is a transaction there. Like, you engage with me, I engage with you. And that's not a financial transaction. It's kind of, I always say there are two currencies in this space. You've got crypto and you've got engagement. And obviously, people look at engagement as something that helps them get into a position where they can actually make more money. So it's always going to be a transaction at that level when you're trying to position yourself against everyone else, right? And you have your own journey, and this is like your platform, and you're trying to build up your presence. That will always be transactional. Um, but beyond that, you do have situations where you just find people that you resonate with. And it doesn't really feel like a transactional relationship anymore. So I would say it always starts as a transactional relationship, and sometimes it can evolve into a relationship that's not transactional at all. Because you can find people that share the same views as you, that have the same passions, and you get to know them personally as well. You get to understand like where they're coming from. They have kids and they have these hobbies, and you break down those barriers that we all have, right? When we meet someone, we're not telling them from the get-go like everything about us, but with time, when we tend to spend more time talking with people, slowly but surely those barriers come off and you get to know them for who they are, and you can start really beautiful friendships here as well. I've been lucky enough to connect with people that, let's say, at first our relationship was quite transactional. I was trying to grow my platform. They were engaging with me. They were coming to my spaces. I was hosting spaces a lot. I would obviously help them in return by giving them exposure on their content. I would try to obviously, be as close as I can to my audience. That would still be a transactional relationship because I was doing that mainly because of the primary goal that I've had, which was growing my platform. But some of them, we got to be friends after a while, and I really didn't care about them, retweeting me or commenting under my tweets. I cared about, nurturing that friendship that we've started, and I still have people that to this day, I met in this space because of a transactional situation, and we became friends. And right now, some of them are not even present anymore. They don't even care about crypto anymore, but we still keep in touch. So I wish them happy birthday. I know when their kids are celebrating their birthdays, we message back and forth. We maybe watch sports as well and comments and messages to one another. So yeah, this is how I would put it, right? the majority of the relationships in crypto start as being transactional, and some of them evolve to a point where they become friendships.
Okay, and when you say there's two types of currency, there's engagement and then the crypto itself. That brings me to my nicely brings me to my next question, which is the content creator's role within a community. You know, I heard in a previous interview a young guy mentioned that every time he publishes a video, he creates what he calls green candles. And that made me laugh because he pumps out a lot of video content to try to what he says what he calls printing green candles. What's your perspective on the role of of the content creator within a community?
I think it really depends, right? Because the way you put it, you're talking about someone who's producing content that's aimed at generating sales or, producing buyers for a specific token or product, whatever it is. And that's a paid promoter, if you ask me. It's like any type of company reaching out and creating an ad. Those are ads more than anything else. I wouldn't really call that educational content. If they're trying to print green candles, they're trying to sell something to someone. On the other hand, you have people that create content which is more educational in nature. So they're trying to explain how different blockchains work. They're trying to educate people on how to spot good projects or how to be more analytical when it comes to their crypto investments. And you've got content creators that just share their experiences, and it's just purely entertainment. So I wouldn't put all content creators in the same bucket. Within a crypto community, depending on the community itself, you're going to have obviously different content creators in your hand. You're going to need different content creators. If we're looking right now at tokens and meme coins and we're going on Telegram, then obviously we're going to need people that create content that's aimed at printing some green candles. That's what everyone wants, right? But if you're going to go on Twitter and you're going to find, let's say, some influencers that are not really doing any promotions, but rather they're growing their platform by trying to educate or entertain people, that's a different type of content creator. And it's usually a content creator that does not find himself or herself in a specific community for long. So looking at it, I would say within a certain community, most of the content creators obviously are going to be interested in, printing some green candles for the community itself. But then if you move away, you have standalone content creators that don't really care about producing specific content for one community. They produce content for a wider audience. So that's how I see things. And
Yeah,
for me,
kind of
myself, I've never produced any content that was aimed at printing green candles. I'm not really good at that.
understood. Okay, that's really clarified it actually. It's important to to clarify the whether or not the token or the asset itself is the intended um, beneficiary of the content or the content creator themselves, right? Um, I've only got there's only 3 minutes left here on this Zoom call, but I do want to follow up with you probably in a future call. But for now, can I get your message to newcomers or young Degens, if you like, that have just arrived on this beginning of what I think is many are calling the next cycle? What was your message to those people that are coming in now?
Don't FOMO into anything. It's better for you to miss out on something than take unnecessary risks. Be an active participant in the crypto space in order to learn. I am really a big believer in learning by actually doing stuff and not just reading about it. And besides that, I would just say have fun. You have to enjoy it, right? If you're coming into this space with the hopes of getting rich quick, you're most likely going to get burned a lot before you can actually do anything. So I would say try to learn about the tech by using it. try to understand that this space is not only speculation, even though a big part of it is, and don't really trust anyone unless you actually manage to form a connection with them in real life as well. Don't don't be naive. This is a space where people are taking advantage of, but it's mostly based on the same principle, which happens, outside of this space as well, which is FOMO. And if you want to get rich quick, and if you're looking for those amazing opportunities once in a lifetime, then you're probably more likely to get scammed or to get tricked. So stay curious, patient, learn by using the tech, and try to form some real connections in this space before you actually trust someone. Those would be my main pieces of advice for anyone who would look into Web3 right now.
Perfect, Michael, mate. That sounds like great advice. And like I say, I really would like to go deeper with you in a future call. Um, but
Yeah,
we're
why not? I would love to as well. I just told you about like my views on the space, but again, I also have a crazy story, personal one, and that starts with the marketing agency and how businesses were actually built in this space around this craze.
and
So
then
yeah, let's keep in touch.
exactly that's it. And I'm starting with this bird's eye view and getting a bit of, and then kind of pulling in. I mean, it's going to be a rolling series. It could go on into infinity, the amount of stories I get sent in the DM.